Hey there. Welcome to the Pine Island Experience podcast. I'm Joanna Anderson with my husband, Trygve. Each of our episodes will be conversations with fellow Pine Islanders.
The goal of our podcast is to share with you our experiences, what we have found to be fun, and what makes the Pine Island Experience so unique.
As an immature writer, you're thinking, I have something to bring. Like the Islanders that I interview and think, oh, really? What are you going to bring crashing into Pine Island that no one's ever heard of? You go into it mistakenly thinking it's because you have something to bring. You may have the gift in your toolbox. You may be able to put words together melodically. And if you do, be careful about the way you put them in order and the way you present them. And so now I would say my priorities have changed greatly. If you look at my shirt, sleep a lot and be kind. I think Wayne Dyer, if you have the chance to be right or be kind, always choose to be kind. And I think that's what I have found on Pine Island. I'm not going to cry. My daughter would say, watch out, she's going to cry. That's the biggest thing here. You know, hurricanes hit and people were like, yeah, I got blown to smithereens. Yeah, my business isn't here anymore. But what do you need? What can I do for you? And I'm thinking, seriously, what is with these people that's really how they feel? That's really who they are. I want to be that. I want to write about that. I want that.
Paulette LeBlanc, editor of the Pine Island Eagle and award-winning author, shares what she's learned from writing about the people of Pine Island, people whose strength, kindness, and resilience have changed her. Paulette has been writing since she could hold a pencil. Before joining the Eagle, she served as managing editor of Gulf Coast Woman magazine, freelances for Lifestyle magazine, and pens a heartfelt grief newsletter called Chapters. In her spare time, she's also the author of several books, including the award-winning children's series Twofer and the Giblet. As Paulette says, the heart of what I do creatively will always be writing. And now, here's Paulette. Welcome, Paulette. We have with us today Paulette LeBlanc. You know, we've been reading you for years, about 10 years. I think I told you yesterday. A lot of my research comes from you. So thank you so much for that. Been meaning to say thank you for a long time. And welcome for coming and doing the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. And just hearing that somebody's been reading me for 10 years, it's a compliment. What an honor. Thank you.
So we have to start in the beginning. All about you. Like, where did you grow up? Can you fill us in on that?
Sure. I was born in the Bronx and raised in LA. We left when I know, a little bit of everything. We left when I was about 6 to go to LA. One of my dearest memories is looking out the airplane window with my father and having him show me the palm trees and saying, this is home now. And that stuck with me. So that became home until Florida is now the biggest priority of where I want to be, Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah, LA was great. California is the beaches, the mountains. You can snow ski and water ski in the same day. Mm-hmm. You know, I grew up that way, watching the mountains, and the skies were blue back then when I grew up, 70s and 80s. And we left there because of an earthquake. My parents came to Florida. I went back to New York. Hadn't graduated high school yet, which is a weird part of my life. And then went to New York, stayed there until I met my parents in Florida and said, Cape Coral's beautiful, I'll stay here. And so I've been in Southwest Florida since 88 and then moved back permanently in 93.
What were you like as a child? Did you keep a diary? Oh, you know, whatever you want to disclose. But did you keep a diary?
Didn't think to keep a diary. I wish I had. Mm-hmm. Now I do.
Did you write stories?
Yes.
Oh.
I used to write love stories and read them to my friends at lunchtime in high school. And I had a few friends say, you should be a writer. And my father, ironically, told me I was a writer. He did a lot of work in Beverly Hills because that's why we went to LA. He said, this is where the money is. And so he said, they need writers. Like, you don't understand. You could put a story together. That's everything. It started because I wrote a poem and he didn't believe that I wrote it. I was maybe 12. And he said, you didn't write this. And I took it as a great big compliment because I know my dad. And I was like, he doesn't believe I wrote it because he thinks it's too good. Then when I was about 19, I met a guy and I had written a poem I have written poetry my whole life. He didn't believe that I wrote it, and it was really insulting. I thought, you don't think I'm smart enough to have come up with this? Because I am very chatty. And I'm sure I was going on about the most mundane things, and he was thinking, you're not capable of what I'm looking at. And I'm thinking, well, yes, I am. But now I've learned that people don't know anything. They're actually pretty uneducated when it comes to other people. So we'll just leave it at that.
You remember where in Los Angeles you lived? And I only asked because we spent time in Reseda as a family when I was young.
I lived in Reseda for a while with some roommates, but I'm from Sylmar. It is like where T.J. Hooker was filmed, where Chips was filmed. There were a lot of things. If you look at E.T., those are mountains I grew up staring at, that neighborhood. So it's like going home again.
And then when did you said you first discovered Pine Island? You said in the 80s.
Yeah. My parents moved to Cape Coral in 88. And so I started visiting pretty frequently from New York, where I was. And then by the time, I guess 91, 92 happened, I was ready to live here along with I was still, pretty young. So I was ready to live near my parents still.
And you knew about Pine Island even in Cape Coral,
yes,
right?
That's where I learned about Pine Island. Ironically, my daughter-in-law grew up out here. You think you know Pine Island, but you don't. As a person in Cape Coral, I thought, oh, yeah, I know Pine Island. It's where we used to go to get our Christmas Eve fish. We were Italians, so, do the fish fest. My dad and I would drive out one of the seafood places and we'd get fresh scallops and shrimp and different things. And so I thought I knew Pine Island, but it's not at all the same when you work out here every day. I wanted to live here. And now, when I say to somebody, oh, so you're just like a Pine Islander, they don't get what a compliment that is. They don't understand, of the hierarchy. Pretty high up.
So what do you enjoy most about being here? I know you work here. Your office is here. You've lived here. What do you enjoy most about it?
The Islanders. Every time I meet a new one, I think I know kind of by the interview when I'm doing a business interview or something's just happened to someone, I can usually tell whether you're going to make it out here or you're going to sell and get out. Because if somebody comes in, and this may be a little judgy of me, if somebody comes into the interview saying, oh, I have just what Islanders need and I know what everybody's got going on and their idea is that they're going to make a ton of money bringing what only they can bring, I think, okay, and I'm not going to be rude, but good luck with that. But if somebody comes in and they say, this place is fantastic and I'd really like to get to know the Matlacha hookers, I want to get to know the people that hang out at Pine Island Elementary. And I see a lot going on here and there with one of our groups, then I think, yeah, you're an Islander. You're going to make it. You have potential. I don't know. How do I know if somebody's going to make it out here? But those are the things that have proven true to me over time. That, you're the best bet you have, I think, on Pine Island is thinking, how can I count myself worthy of this crowd? Like, what can I do to help and to benefit other people? And then you're thinking like an Islander. If you're really out to, I'm going to make some good money doing this, I'm like, that's not the best way to be a part of Pine Island. The best way is to be a part of Pine Island, so that's just, that's my opinion. Take it for anything or nothing.
So then from the poetry and the stories to your friends at lunchtime, how does that progress into particularly a career of magazines, newspapers, etc.?
If I knew that, I'd write a book about it. I have no idea. When I became the managing editor of Gulf Coast Woman, which was at that point unbelievable to me, I was going to church with the financial officer, the CFO, and somebody said, oh, have you met Paulette? She goes here and she can write, because he said, I'm looking for writers, editors, people to be a part of this, and sales team. That's a big part of any readership, and revenue is everything there is as far as a magazine or a newspaper. So he was looking for the readership side, and somebody sent him my way. And I said, okay. And actually a book I have published now, he read. I was like, I'm in the middle of this project. I still would like to get it published. But here's an example of something I've written. He read it and it was only 3 or 4 chapters long. And he said, "You're my editor. You're hired." I was like, wow. So that was kind of an interesting experience. That was, again, an honor and a compliment. I thought, oh, okay, he liked that. I would love to make that same book a film project at some point if I could. One of the loves of my life, for sure, just like my children's series.
Similar process to get with a Pine Island Eagle, or was there a plan there, or same kind of happenstance?
Where they say, what degrees do you have? What education do you have? Well, I don't. My life was getting married and having kids, and I meant to go back for the degree and didn't even finish my AA, nothing. Just went to college a little bit. That was it. Jim, my ex-boss, my former boss, I should say, read my writing, hired me as editor. I was the only editor they had. The sales team couldn't quite pull it off. We ended up closing. And then my former boss, Jim, who's a friend of mine, said, "We're going to give you, you've created somewhat of a brand of this magazine, so we're going to give it to you and let you run with it." Well, I still needed a sales team, which I couldn't find. So we went under. Basically, I was like, I need people that can sell ads. So that was it. And then a friend of mine who was also an editor for the same company, New Century Press, I think it was the name of it. She did River Valley Woman up in Minnesota while I was doing Gulf Coast Woman down in Florida. Well, she and I became really good friends. In fact, we have a call later today. We called each other our virtual best friend, VBBF for, for the longest time. So she said, the Breeze in Cape Coral is hiring. You should go and apply. And I thought, I'm not going to apply for a writer's job. Who's going to hire me? Jim knows me. He knew me from church and he got to know me better by hiring me. But that's just not going to happen. And my friend Eileen said, "What are you high on right now? You've had this job for years. People love Gulf Coast Woman. Apply for the job." So I did. And when I walked in, my boss said, "I'm very familiar with your work. We can't afford you." So it's like, really? That's like you saying, "We've been reading you for years." Really? What? Who am I? But that's okay. Humble is good. And so I'm amazed by these things. And in fact, when I got the job, my daughter said to my son, "Mom's going to be a magazine editor." He goes, "Okay, Mom, have you met her? Mom's going to be a magazine editor." "Oh, okay." So then after Gulf Coast Woman got so popular, I said to my son, "So what do you think?" He goes, "I can't believe it." I was like, "Yeah, because I'm just your mom." Yeah, so it's kind of been like that. It's, people still say, "Are you still newspaper editor?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how do you like that?" Who saw that coming? Not me.
What do you like best about interviewing people?
Making a new friend. It's just like this. It's so friendly and just like, getting to know you. It's nice. And in person is nicer than on the phone. I do a lot remotely since Ian and COVID, but in person is nice because you can feel somebody.
And without mentioning any names, what makes for a good interview, would you say? Or things that maybe help you out more so than good, maybe is a bad word, but things that as you get to know them, what helps you as a person that's going to produce the final written product?
When I find something that lights a spark in the person that I'm talking to, whether it's seeing their face or listening to them answer, then I know, okay, go back to that. Go back to that. Because if they're on fire, then it's going to be a good article. I don't know if you read the Ronnie Lawley article. Wow. There are not many interviews I've had. And I was told he'd be, an excellent person to know. And he's so humble and so kind. It was just amazing. I just listened the whole time. I thought, I can't believe we're talking about this, because the Celebrated Islander story is one of my staples. Just for, what do you love about Pine Island? How long have you or your family been here? Where do you see Pine Island going? That kind of thing. But with him, I was like, just shut up and listen. He was just on about these amazing things. Like, oh, yeah. And, my dad was in World War II and he got captured. He was a prisoner of war. I'm like, okay, I've never seen this in this article before. Interesting. So stuff that goes off the beaten path, love it. I'm an off-roader, I guess.
You have any memorable stories that have really touched you in one way or another?
When I first took this job, or at least in the first year. Somebody Facebook messaged me about a duck that had been lost on Pine Island. And I had already noticed there was a cat of the week when you were lucky enough to have it. And I thought, what kind of newspaper is this? After being in LA and New York, it was interesting to me that we had a cat of the week and a fishing column, really interesting. So there was this duck that was missing and they gave me pictures of it. It was in a carrier. They brought it back to the owners and they let it out. It ran to the owner. And, I had these great pictures and this great story to go with it. And I thought, that is this job. That is very different than anything I've ever done. So it was sort of along those lines. When I touch on the real people of Pine Island, I love it. I don't really care about, it doesn't matter what I don't care about. I'm touched continuously by the reality of Pine Island. And I'm so excited and proud that this is my everyday. Like, this is my job. And so my fiance watches these people that do water shows. They go out and spearfish and they do, whatever. And he loves this one guy in particular and these other couple of guys. And he'll watch all of their podcasts, all of their video casts. And the one guy, you can tell he's just doing what he loves. And I'm like, yeah, I get that, because my daughter and I discuss often that job happiness, you have to count into what you're getting paid. Most people don't look at that, but it's, to me, about 70 or 75% of your pay is whether or not you're getting up every day to do what you love to do, or whether you're just punching a clock somewhere and you'd rather be doing something else.
You look back at all this interviewing experience you now have, would you say it's made you a better listener, a better writer, or how has that maybe changed you?
And I hope Tom doesn't hear this, because he'll say, I'm calling baloney. It's made me learn to stop. When I've asked someone a question and I see where they're going, don't just assume you know the answer. Don't finish their sentence for them. Shut up and just listen, because I've heard so many of my interviews. I'll listen 3 or 4 times and I'm like, Paulette, stop talking. Just let them answer the question. So I have learned to do that, I think, a little better, but not as great as I would like to.
What do you think are common threads that you see in people now? Because you've interacted, I think, with probably a very wide variety of people. You must have gained some insights in terms of, people and how they're going to react, spirit of the people, whatever.
It kind of depends on what the story is about. So if I can get to someone's motivation for wanting to do a story to begin with, then I kind of know better where to go with it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's sort of something you just feel along the way, and you get a clue, I guess, as to where you're going.
Maybe I already touched on it with the just listen to the answer, but any other tips for people that are interested in interviewing or potentially then writing that up as a story?
Sure. You're best off, I think, doing stories that excite you and just listening. I mean, not everybody needs that advice, thank God. I hang out with mostly listeners because I'm a chatty person. So I seem to attract all the people that want to listen. My friends, and they hear that'll laugh. So yeah, you don't give us much choice. I always have a story. It's like a guy that always has a guy for that. I always have a story for that.
No, but if somebody says, I'm interested in what Paulette does and her kind of a career, and I enjoy her writing, I guess basically if somebody was wanting to get into that, what might you suggest to them?
If they want to be a writer, you have to learn to write within a frame if you're going to make a living doing it. Unless you're Stephen King, nobody cares. You can write about whatever, but until you have an audience, people really don't care what you have to say about anything. And that shouldn't hurt anyone's feelings. That's just true of all of us. I mean, think about it. Do you really care what your neighbor thinks about spaghetti? No. But if your neighbor was Stephen King and wrote a book about it, might give it a grab. You might. So think about building an audience and think about what is the best way. What do you have to offer? And then offer that to the world. And you might be surprised. I had no idea. I like to write since I could hold a pencil. but I didn't know that it would end up being my career, never mind one that I'm so happy with. And there are different kinds of writing. Only the best writers or the people that have the biggest audiences can write about whatever they want and get paid for it. Otherwise, you have to write what whoever's signing the checks tells you to write about, and you better be good at it. Otherwise, there'll be a line around the block to take your job.
So like some of my professions, liking something and being successful at it are completely different.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. There are definitely moments that I can pinpoint in my life where I've been good at something that I didn't, I used to say, you can use a boot to hammer a nail in, but that doesn't mean that's what that boot was meant to do. It'll work in that situation.
Well, let's talk about the recent, or any books that you really want to talk about that you've written, just about your journey into that world and how much you enjoy it. I can tell when you talk about it, when you talk about your books.
Yeah. My children's series, Twofer and the Giblet, has been the love of my life for a long time. The other book that I have published is called Consuming Fire. It's a book about faith, Christianity in particular. And I would love for it to be a film project because everyone that's read it says, I can see this as a movie. And that's how I write. I sort of see it as a film in my mind. I cast every role. I've written many, many books. I self-published the first one when I was at Gulf Coast Woman. And then the second one, I wrote it, didn't do anything with it. I could self-publish probably the second one or go to somebody else. I wrote a science fiction book, which I'm really proud of also. Can't do anything with that though. I have some people that want to grab it. Somebody said Netflix. I was like, yeah, I won't even tell you what it's about because that would be also, I just need to keep it confidential, whatever. It probably won't ever go anywhere, but it's called The Days of Rain, REIN, which is one of the main character. It's interesting. It's really neat. I'll tell you about it when we're not on air.
Okay.
Unless you want to delete the whole. So there's that. And I have 2 already laid out in my head. But Consuming Fire, I have a soundtrack. I have a cast for it in my mind. I've got anybody that wants to read it, and feels like they're privy to doing a film project. That would be awesome. But, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know who you know. But they would also have to be into faith. I would imagine nobody would want to do that film if they weren't driven by Jesus in some way.
Now, how would you say you're writing for kids? How does that differ from the other writings you've done?
Well, what I always say about Toof and Gib is that they are basically Frasier for kids. I'll send you some stuff and you tell me what you think. Again, when I read the Pine Island book, I just fall over laughing. I mean, it's so much fun. And Islanders will shake their head and go, yep, I know she's talking about Jug Creek Marina here, or I know she's talking about this boat or that, it'll be familiar to people that live here, I think. So it's brought me so much joy that I don't care about much else having to do with Toof and Gib. They're my little mice buddies.
Well, are there any upcoming projects that you see in your future?
I am noodling. I have some ideas. So, we'll see. But yeah, I can imagine there's some stuff. Coming.
What's some other things that's on your creative list down the road? Or how many noodles do you have out there? You said you're noodling. Do you have a lot right now that you're thinking of and you're trying to process? Or are you thinking of just one thing?
For me, the heart of what I do creatively will always be writing. But recently, because of health stuff that's come up, I've had to take a beat and sort of step inward. And so I've been noodling around with my green thumb. I didn't realize how much I love growing things. I used to, when I was married, we had every salad ingredient. I would tell my kids, go out and grab a salad, grab whatever and bring it in. And we grew so many different kinds of fruit and we had a lot grafted on to, things that would grow. I didn't realize until recently. Now I grow my own romaine. I've got poblano peppers, tomatoes, of course, just celery. And the celery is kicking ass and taking names in the garden. I'm like, man, who knew celery's like, I got this. I was like, wow, you're like my brother. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, so there's that. And you can be creative even with that, so just interesting. And grandkids will do a lot of,
Oh, they love it.
Yeah. And everything sort of takes on a new persona when you think of it through the eyes of your grandchildren. I have 2 granddaughters whose birthdays are coming up in August. One is my daughter's daughter. One is my son's daughter. We call them the twins. They look alike more than my son and daughter ever have. It's crazy. And Emma is a year younger and she's taller. So I've heard them have this argument. They're 5 and 6 going on 6 and 7. And I've heard them have this argument. The bigger one gets it. No, the older one gets it because the shorter one is older. So it's really funny. But yeah, they changed now. I've got little Henry and my granddaughter Alina is my daughter's stepdaughter, and she's just cool. I mean, it's just, she's been a welcome addition to the family and fits right in. It's incredible. What life brings that you don't see coming, those are the biggest blessings, I think. So it's taken me 54 years to learn that.
Well, you have another 54 to go.
Well, okay.
What do you hope people take away from your writings, whether it be for the newspaper or the books? Do you think about their feelings, or is it your passion, and do you hope they pick that up? Or what do you think is happening on the other side, or hope happens on the other side?
It used to be that way. It's funny that you worded it that way. I'm like, wow, you're kind of a genius. Yes. I think as an immature writer, you're thinking, I have something to bring. Like the Islanders that I interview and think, oh, really? What are you going to bring crashing into Pine Island that no one's ever heard of? You go into it mistakenly thinking it's because you have something to bring. You may have the gift in your toolbox. You may be able to put words together melodically. And if you do, be careful about the way you put them in order and the way you present them. And so now I would say my priorities have changed greatly. If you look at my shirt, sleep a lot and be kind. I think Wayne Dyer, if you have the chance to be right or be kind, always choose to be kind. And I think that's what I have found on Pine Island. I'm not going to cry. My daughter would say, watch out, she's going to cry. That's the biggest thing here. Hurricanes hit and people were like, yeah, I got blown to smithereens. Yeah, my business isn't here anymore. But what do you need? What can I do for you? And I'm thinking, seriously, what is with these people that's really how they feel? That's really who they are. I want to be that. I want to write about that. I want that.
And how best do people follow you? Do you have social media, websites, etc.? How do they find out more about some of your work?
Not on social media much. I have to do Facebook because of my job. So you can find the Eagle Facebook. If you message me on there, I am eventually going to see it and go, oh, someone messaged me and get back to you. And my personal Facebook page, I mean, you can try, but I'm just not on there very often because there was a time in my life where the world is going to learn the things I've learned and I'm going to, I have something to say. Now I'm like, I'm sort of ready to embrace other people and see what they've found. And it's more valuable to me than the things that I've found. I know the things I've found. Who cares? But if you want to hear about it, okay, like this is such a surprise to me. Who wants to interview me? This is nuts. But thank you.
Oh, no, we wanted to interview you for a long time.
That's interesting to me.
Well, here's an example. We know Scott Zilch really well, the commander at the VFW. We work with him or for him for quite a while. He wrote a letter to the editor about you. I'm sure you saw it. Did you hear about it? The motto at the VFW was doing more for veterans, but he said yours should be, what you do for Pine Island.
Oh,
you do it all. And he wrote a very long letter to the editor about you. I'm glad you saw it.
Since I'm the editor, I did. I got it. And
did you approve it?
And I thought, no. But I think it went to my boss also.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't remember how that got into the hands of the people at the office, the main office. And I said, no. You can write a letter to the editor, but you can't write about the editor in the newspaper. It was like Gulf Coast Woman. People would say to me, why isn't there a story about you in here? And I would laugh and say, when do you see the Marlboro Man in Vogue magazine in the center page with a story about him? You don't. Don't confuse readership and revenue. I'm here to make sure that people are going to keep reading it and they, thank God, think I have good enough ideas that I can, get Islanders to talk about themselves. And I'm so happy when I do. And I've learned the difference, in what you want kind of and what you don't.
Well, thank you. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much. We're humbled that you're a professional interviewer and we're, interviewing you. It's been very, very nice. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I always talk about how everyone needs exactly this moment that you're giving me. When I see people clap on AGT or whatever, I'm like, everyone should have that moment. Thank you. Because I just realized as you said that, you're giving me that moment. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is an honor.
We hope you enjoyed our Pine Island Experience podcast. If you have any ideas for us, people to interview, or any comments, please feel free to email them to us at pineislandexperience@gmail.com. That's pineislandexperience, all one word, @gmail.com. Don't forget to like us, and you may subscribe to this podcast using all the major catchers like Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks again for listening, and remember, island life is a constant vacation. We'll see you on the next podcast.